You, my friend, want to be in business on purpose. You want to fuel your flame, you want to serve others, and you want to build a business that fuels a lifestyle that you love. But it can be so hard to stay on track with all the shoulds and the coulds and the lists. Is there a way to plan out how you're going to do this, stay on purpose, and build the life of your dreams? Well, tune in because I have a special guest today who's going to give you all the secrets. Welcome to Inner Business, the podcast that delves deep into the soul of entrepreneurship. My name is Selena Woodward, seasoned business owner, qualified business coach, and intuitive guide. I'm going to offer you actionable steps to increase your revenue whilst we explore.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Inner Business. As always, I am your hostess, Selena Woodward, the business coach who likes to ask you, what is your business really trying to teach you? Woohoo! And today you may notice that I am joined by a special guest. The wonderful Jonathan Sheeley is with me today. Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, Selena.
It's awesome to have you here. Jonathan and I met as part of the Business Made Simple coaching coach builder program. So we are very familiar with each other, and I am very excited that he's here because Jonathan is somebody who really gets how to live a purposeful life. Is that a bit too much? No, Jonathan's like, yeah, I got this. So Jonathan, tell us, why is that? Who are you? Introduce yourself.
Hey, well, I just am so happy to be here. I love podcasting, and this is my first international podcast, which is pretty awesome. So,
Ooh.
I have been a coach now for almost a year in some shape or form, and I got into this line of work because I absolutely love watching people's lives transform. In my previous career for 10 years, I was working in strategic planning in an enrollment format at a university, and when you work at a university, you're working with people all the time. There's high turnover, and we're always bringing new people in. And my absolute joy was to see people change. Because you come in green behind, and they have no idea what they're doing. They don't know why they're doing it, and I just really enjoy seeing them change, and that's how I got into coaching in the first place. But now I run a small business consulting firm, and we work business leaders, especially leadership teams of 3 to 6, and we work with their personal lives and not just their professional lives, because I 100% believe that you've got to have things figured out mentally and personally to be a success in business, because it just doesn't work. You can't have one domain by itself and pour everything into it, because all the other domains, they affect one another. That's a little bit, just a little teaser too about what I'm all about.
Awesome. And we will be pulling that apart today in this episode. Because obviously, here on the Inner Business podcast, we like to dive into how business is a mirror to us, how all those moments of discomfort that creep in around sales and marketing and mission and vision and all of those elements of our fabulous aeroplane of business trigger us and make us feel uncomfortable. And how we have a habit sometimes of pushing that down. Maybe that's the British element that we mentioned earlier. Pushing that down, keeping calm and carrying on. But with the toll that takes, and how that isn't a healthy way to build a business that kind of lights you up and fuels your fire and feels good. And I know that that's what you are all about. I mean, I'm looking at one of your web pages, and there's this awesome quote on there. I've got it here, so I'm going to read it so I make sure I get it right. I'd love to know the story behind this quote, because this quote comes from a customer, and it says, if you don't plan life, someone else is planning it for you. I'm going to say that again because that hits a bit hard sometimes. If you don't plan life, someone else is planning it for you. Tell us a bit about the story behind that quote. What does that mean for you?
Oh man, it resonates so hard. There's a huge cohort of people who are leading life focus retreats like I do. And in the initial group, when we go through and we as guides, we go through a life focus retreat. And the whole purpose of that retreat is identifying what your life is actually doing, and the knowing what's going on in your life today and what you want it to be doing in 10 years. And one of the scary things is to write your own epitaph and see, if you died today, what would people say about you? And it's kind of shocking. It hurts actually a little bit to do that, because you go, all these things that I'm working on, I didn't actually accomplish yet, or all these things that I wanted to do, I didn't actually get to them. And the idea behind planning, I know a lot of people get stressed about planning, but if you're not planning, someone else is going to be doing the planning for you. And that's not always a bad thing, because we have people in our lives that we trust. And, I've got a wife and a couple of kids. And so my schedule highly revolves around their schedule and the things that they want. And I've got a great family and great friends, and all of these people in my life, all these things that are asking of me something, they will run on their own schedule. They will run on their own goals and on their own plans. And if I don't take time and take stock on which of the things I need to be doing now, someone else will make that plan for me. That my calendar gets filled up. We love our technology, and we love to give people access to our calendar, calls on our calendar without us even saying anything. And believe me, I love it when people do that, because I want to help people. But you have to have some parameters where people can't book on your life. That's why when you set up that calendar for booking, you put parameters on when they can do it. Because if you wanted to let someone book a call at 1 a.m, it's just not going to work for you, right? And it's the same thing for your life. If you're not going to set some boundaries on some places where things can't be changed, and you don't schedule time for the people who you care about the most, and to be honest, if you don't schedule some time to get yourself in order so that you can show up for the people who you care about the most, things just go haywire. We call it drifting. People like to be lazy. I mean, I'm just as guilty as anyone else of the pontoon life, right? Where you want to just sit and float, and that's great for a vacation, but it's not great for life. And so that's the energy that is brought by that quote. If you're not going to take time to set aside energy for certain domains of your life, someone else will take that energy from you, because there's lots of people who want you. If you have relationships, if you have business, most of us with our businesses, we love what we do. And because we love what we do, it will demand everything we have and more.
I totally relate to that. My old business, that was definitely the case. And I tried very hard to have boundaries. But, like having an ideal work week is one thing, and knowing how to schedule boxes and block things out. But I think I went so far into that I actually, my whole world was run by little colored boxes on my Outlook calendar, and there was no room for spontaneity, passions, or me, because I was so busy filling my calendar with family, friends, business, that if you looked at where does Selena fit, like where is me going to my circus class here? Where's me doing my singing practice? Where's me reading another crazy book about dragons? Where am I playing World of Warcraft? See, this is very revealing. Where's me? I'm just not there. And I know so many of my listeners will definitely relate to that. Absolutely. And I loved what you said. I've written that down. Pontoon life. I love that. Instantly, I tell you what, a TikTok popped into my mind that I saw yesterday of a tiny parrot floating around on a lilo in the sea. And I was like, yeah. And you know what? It feels really appealing, doesn't it? It feels really relaxing, and like I'm the parrot on the lilo. But you are right. That parrot is being pushed around by the tide and by whoever's shoving him. And it might feel nice. Sometimes, look, we have to let go and have a bit of control gone. But if we float through life then we are giving up, efficacy, our choices, because we're not making conscious choices. And one of the things that's really interesting is some of my clients really want to work in what we call flow. So they will say, I don't really want to do that now because I'm not feeling inspired to do that right now. I'm not in flow. Sometimes I have to point out that they might be doing that to themselves, that often there's a barrier there that means they're not going to be in flow for a while because there's a reason why they're avoiding that. And if they continue to stay in that space where they're like, no, it doesn't, I'm just floating over here, it doesn't feel right now, for too long, then they're doing exactly what you're saying. They're living the pontoon life. I love that. I'm going to steal that. I like that. That's awesome.
Good,
And
trademark it.
the parrot is coming into this podcast. Yeah, so yeah, it's brilliant. I love that. So what would you do then? Like I know that with your way of working, you have domains, don't you? Different
Mm.
lenses, I guess, that we look through so that we can begin to make more conscious choices. How do we plan for a well-rounded, fulfilling, purpose-driven life that includes a business that is feeding that, but helps us be clear about what we want? How do we do that? What would you say?
Well, this is exactly why I got into coaching, because several years back I didn't know how to answer that question, and I really got in over my head. I had a new job, had management responsibilities that were intense, and I gained some weight. I lost some of my hair. I ended up shaving it all off. It's not there at all. That was permanent damage, evidently. But that was the rock bottom, if you want to say, for me. And
Hmm.
what I do now is I want to prevent people from hitting that rock bottom. Let's catch you on the downswing, or let's catch you where you're really trying to get up and higher as far as identifying your values. So we talk about there needs to be some time for assessment. And well, like I said earlier, you write your own epitaph. That takes some time. And
Hmm.
so I host retreats. We take 2 days out and we really try to relax. We try to connect with what we're thinking about, with what we're feeling, with what our body's telling us. Sometimes you do need that break away. I really recommend, if people are going to do the retreat, to schedule yourself a night where you don't have the kids around. Maybe go to a hotel, to a spa in between or something like that, so that your body can fully unplug for a second. But that reflection time, that one-time reflection in a retreat is really important. But then once you start your planning, once you have your life focus or your life plan, then that's where your annual work is going to click in, and then you break it down into your quarters, right? You really can't plan for your entire life in one go. That's not the point of a life focus. The point is to identify a future that you want to get to, and it's always going to be rolling ahead of you. You're always planning. I know there's a client that had someone attend one of her retreats. She was 93. Okay. And she was
Wow.
conducting a life focus for the next 10 years of her life. I feel like
Good
if
work.
she's going to do that, those of us who are significantly younger than that, we have nothing to talk about. She wanted to make her next 10 years count. And so that focus gives us the future, right? Gives us the vision. But some things that you have to identify, if you're going to, within your focus, you need to come up with a personal mission. And we like to talk about business missions, but you got to have a personal mission, and a personal mission is different than a business mission. We talk about, in a personal mission, you need to identify your roles in your life that you're fulfilling, your
Mm.
values, and then some accomplishments that you want to do. Within that, you're not identifying in your mission which of the domains of life are most important to you. You're going to provide yourself a lens to attack each of the domains. All right. So let me list off your 9 domains for you. Okay. So these are the things that we talk through in a life focus setting. You've got your body, your mind, your spirit, love, family, community, money, work, and hobbies. And it is a
Mm.
long list, but let's be honest, life is complex. And if you're not identifying with any of these, in a big way in any given moment, I can guarantee you your life is in drift. If after reading through that list, body, mind, spirit, love, family, community, money, work, and hobbies, chances are 2 or 3 of them are sticking out real big to you, because in this season of
Mhm.
life, you're focused on those 3 things, 3 or 4 things, and that's fine. A life focus is not about being so crippled by a really developed and intense plan for all 9 domains at the same time.
Like my colored boxes that I trap myself in. Yeah.
Exactly. It's about
Overachieving again.
choosing which ones need effort right now. I'll tell you, I
Yeah.
got 2 kids. I got a 4-year-old, almost 5, and a 4-month-old. Okay? Let me tell you, family is real
Family.
high on my domain list right now. Right? Because My wife is on she's on the feeding schedule. She's on the feeding clock merry-go-round. If anyone involved in that life right now knows that around the clock feedings, man, there's almost nothing else involved with life when you're on that. If I didn't know going into that was my highest priority in this season, I could be really discouraged on some of the other domains of my life. But if you are identifying which of them is the most important in this season, it allows you to rest in the other areas. And so the life focus gives you a vision for all 9 domains for the future. What do I want to accomplish in each of these domains? And frankly, if you don't have a huge vision for one of them, that's fine. You don't necessarily have to have a huge developed set of hobbies. You should have 1 or 2 to give yourself a brain break. But you don't have to. I mean, there are some people who are serial hobbyists, right? And once they get good at one, they're done with it, so they can move on to the next one. And more power to them, right? But there are some things that you can't ignore. You can't ignore your body. You can't ignore your spirit. And I really, really coach people. You can't ignore the love section of your life either. You really need these components. They're connected to who we are. All of these 9 domains represent a part of a person. And if you're not intentional with one of them, the others will suffer.
And I think it's really interesting. I'm really glad that these 9 domains exist. I'm going to share with you when I've done this kind of work before and someone says to me, your epitaph, I'm imagining, or what is your life purpose? My brain goes blank because I'm overwhelmed and I just don't know. And then because I'm me and I know that there's plenty of people who relate to this, I will go deep, overwhelm myself even more, and I just get stuck, freeze. I have the freeze response. And then that makes you feel really good because like, no, and then you panic, right? So that sounds dramatic, but I'm seeing you nodding, so I know I'm not alone. You've seen this happen.
No.
So I love that the 9 are there, and I'm imagining that each one of those is broken down into sort of some clues, because that I'm imagining allows a kind of scaffold or a framework for you to actually understand yourself, your purpose, and what lights you up. Because so many people don't know what lights them up, particularly if, as you described a moment ago, you've hit what I would call a tower card tarot reading, a tower card moment where it's all just gone big strike of lightning. Holy crap, I've got to get up off the floor. I'm looking around and I'm realizing that I got to make some big decisions. I got to get back up. If the life has got to that point, then you've not been paying attention usually. And that is a very big sign that, like you say, you're living the pontoon life. You're like a little parrot. You're just floating around. And the universe has gone, do you know what? There's a thing for you to do here. You have a purpose. Can you get back on track, please? And I love that you have 9 elements. Do you find that? Am I the only crazy person, or do other people feel that way too? Please tell me other people feel that way too.
No, here's the thing. So I'm a huge fan of Michael Hyatt and his company, Full Focus, full disclosure. And several years back, he wrote a book with a friend and kind of laid out this process with a book. And the book was very open-ended and did exactly what you described. Said, here, go through this process and here you go. Here's your fun, go and do it. And there was no guidance. It was just a list of things you got to do. And let me tell you, it took me 3 years to figure it out. And then this wonderful, creative experience, the company grew and got some feedback, and they really started to integrate it with some other parts of their business. And they had this great idea. Let's gamify it. And so now they have a box that says, all right, of all of these things that are important in someone's life, they whittled it down to some decks of cards and allow you to read through them. And exactly what you said, when you sit down at the blank sheet of paper with your legal pad or whatever, your laptop, and it's blank and you're like, how do I describe my life? But when you have some systematic questions to go through, hey, what about this? What's your role? What are some values that you lean into? And out of these 9 elements of life, how are you doing? Here's your checkup list, right? It's like a self-checklist. And then even after you go through the 9 domains, it gives you some descriptors of what might be happening in a healthy way and what might be happening in a non-healthy way to give you that like snap moment of, "Oh, I'm not actually doing anything intentionally in this area, but this is what I would like to visualize it in the future." And so it gives you some words. I'll say I have a few friends that have gone through a similar life planning process that are writers, and they love it, right? They sit down with a blank sheet of paper and they can just write pages and pages and pages. And that's kind of like my wife. She just real, she calls herself a wordy, right? She just loves
I love
words.
a wordy. Yeah.
Right. But I'm not like that. And it took me, quarter after quarter, year after year to really develop that plan. And then when they came out with this box, I felt cheated. I was like, listen, wait a second. I'm not even like, here's the thing. But it was also how I got into doing this for my career, because I'm telling you, this is game
Yeah.
changer. You don't have to have, you don't have to have this this roadmap like a GPS that's saying turn left, turn right, do this at 400 feet in 5 months. You got to have this. No, it's not that granular. It's more directional. It's a compass to choose from, right? Let's head this direction. The funny thing about I like the phrase as the crow flies. For describing it with life, because you know what? Sometimes as the crow flies is a little bit easier to understand than turn left, go 400 feet, go turn right, those kinds of things. Find a direction and just start walking, right? Just
And I
start
imagine that
walking.
as the crow is flying, all those things we talked about, like the shoulds and the things, the other pressures, other people in your life are going to influence where the crow is flying, I guess. And so you can't be as rigid as like, I'm doing this and screw you, because that's not going to go well for
Mm-mm.
your relationships. But,
Right.
especially if you're in a partnership with a partner like a wife or your business or any other kind of partnership. So if you have people in your life who are purpose driven, and I know the people listening to this podcast are purpose driven and they're really clear on their purpose, and so are the people in their life, then I'm imagining that gives you an amazing amount of power. Like you can step into that power and go, hey, but I'm also imagining that would involve more than just getting the cards out and playing the game. So I'm imagining there's some kind of checking in or planning to do that. How does that work? Because I know for me, every I evaluate
Mm.
against these things that I'm checking into. Is there something similar in what you guys do? Like how do you do that? How do you choose which way the compass is going, which way the crow might be going this time?
Well, I love that you asked that, because I think a lot of times people have in the past just developed a plan and then they had no idea what to do after that. It's great.
Okay.
They've described the envisioned future and now they have no clue what to do with it from point A to point B. And so
Yeah.
what I do is I coach people on using the full focus planner. What you do with the full focus planner is the whole concept is winning at work and succeeding at life. It's a both and. And I like to
Hmm.
tell people that the idea of work-life balance is baloney. I hate it, because it's what they try to explain is like, well, in this week, I'm going to give 70% to my work life and a 30% to my business life, or, whatever the formula is. No, the double win lifestyle, which is win at work, succeed at life, is about when you're somewhere, you're giving 100% of yourself to it.
Mm.
And the planner allows you to coordinate both your work life and your home life in all 9 domains and do it for just a quarter of the year. And this was a game changer for me, right? So I had planners. I've had systematic ways of keeping lists and trying to stay organized. But the planner, it forces you to write, which there's a lot of research around the tactile nature, the senses of actually
Hmm.
using a pen,
Yep.
not using a screen. I know people will fight me over that, but I'm telling you,
No,
there's
it's true.
something
I've
powerful.
done that research too. I used to own a business on reflective practice and writing out reflections about your teaching. There is a massive body of research around that, and how the movement of the pen. I mean, I like to use a pen on my digital screen. I'm gonna be honest, the same thing. But the
Yeah,
movement of the pen, it's another sensory perception that your brain uses, have a moment to evaluate. And it's that moment where your brain takes it out of your head and you start to see it on the page where the work actually happens. Because if
right.
you leave it in your head, the research says that it's just like we're talking about, it's drifted in there. It's not been evaluated. It's just sort of floating around. And half of what's up there isn't even true because you haven't taken a minute to evaluate it. So you are absolutely right. Academic Selena stepped in there
No,
and
that's
backed
great.
that up.
And my English teacher wife is the same way, right? And
Yeah.
so what the planner does for you is it forces you to focus. It
Mm,
forces you to eliminate too many things from your schedule in this particular 3 months of the year, right? And so what it forces you to say is in this 3 month period, I'm going to only accomplish these few things. And people always say, Jonathan, I cannot just focus on 3 things in 3 months. I have way too much to do. And I guarantee you, if you only ever look at a list of 100 things to do, I guarantee you, you're only going to get 2 or 3 of them done anyway. So you might as well eliminate a bunch of them off of your list and say, here are the most important things for me to accomplish, and then really engineer your life around that. And then every week, I do a weekly preview. I do a weekly preview Zoom call every Monday morning for free for people to just show up and have accountability, because you've got to decide, I'm going to do this week and I'm not going to do these other things. And there's a real big power in your life for creating creative constraints. I can't do more than this. And so I'm only going to do what matters the most. And so it forces you to decide, what are the most important things for me to do? Yeah, I could do 100 things. And I tell people all the time, problem solving wouldn't be problem solving if you weren't eliminating things from the option list, right? It's not a problem if you just check them off. I don't really think it's creative work if you're just doing a bunch of stuff and then you have this long list. I mean, I love checking boxes, right? Getting my little dopamine hit of checking the box out that I accomplished something. But if I'm just going to huge this long list of 100 things and I'm just going to check, 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 you don't really know what you did any of it for. And so you got to take your life focus and say, in 10 years, I want to accomplish these things. And then you're going to break down those huge vision things about the future. And you're going to say, what are the milestones between here and there? And those are
mm,
your goals. These are some annual goals. And it's not like these, New Year's resolutions that, statistically speaking, businesses make a ton of money in January on New Year's resolutions, and they never have
yeah.
to give any kind of effort for those people by the time March rolls around because everyone's gone. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about installing habits of production and of value-driven effort that changes your life. I tell people all the time when I work with them, I'm not in this for marginal gains, because marginal gains might be great in the stock market, but it's not great for an individual's success in life. I want to overhaul the way you think about these areas of your life, because if you're not overhauling, you're not changing, you're not growing. And too often, we don't take the steps in between on the daily to make a habit compounding effect towards these goals. All right. So you're going to take these long term, this is how I want to be remembered. This is how I want people to talk about me when I'm gone. And then you're going to say, let's break all of that down into a daily action. And then those daily actions, they stack and stack and stack. And all of a sudden you've accomplished the dreams that you thought you never could accomplish. I tell you, that's what I've done with starting my own business, with staying at home with my kids. These are
Hmm.
things that people dream about. Well,
Yep.
you're never going to accomplish them if you don't make a plan.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and it's scary, right? Because I remember that too. Like the first business I had came because I'd had a baby and my brain needed a thing to do. And so I had this great idea and then I ended up turning it into this national business, right? Because I did that. I with my partner, we planned it. All of our friends and family thought we were insane because we've got a baby. Why weren't we getting a 9 to 5 job and making sure that we've got this income and blah, blah, blah? Like we were doing something a bit out there. And so when the people around you aren't doing that and your life plan is different, if you, like you're saying, if you're not making these conscious choices and breaking it down, there isn't necessarily someone around that can show you how to do that. You've got to really take that leap of faith. I really love what you said about how this is not an and or with work life, that work is part, like work is one of the nine, right? And I guess business could go in there. But I know when I look at these nine, I'm thinking, well, in my business, spirit is really important to me, how I'm connected to that energetically in my business. My mental and emotional health is really important because if I do not take time to lead myself before I lead anything else, including my business, then business is not going to go well. If my body is not in a great space, and I've like not done my steps today, like I'll often go live on Instagram, I'll do a reel on my walk and I'll just be going, oh, I'm thinking about this every day. I try really hard to do at least 10,000 steps. Like that's really important to me. That is one of my critical actions or one of these things that, you might put down like every day this quarter, we're going to get up and move. We're going to just see what happens. And as I'm listening to you talk about this, it's not and or, it's the same. I'm getting really sort of intrigued and piqued by that. And I love these check-ins and your free group. We'll have to add that to the show notes as well if anybody wants to drop in. The show notes, the link will be appearing below us right now. So make sure you go check it if you want to go hang out with Jonathan and do some of this work with him. I think it's really important. Money is there, right? Money. If your business is making you money and is one of your income streams, hopefully not the only one, because obviously we want to do passive income and all that kind of thing. But, money and, they're separate. Isn't it interesting? I love it. How do you think, from that, do you agree with that? Do you think business shows up in all of these nine domains, or is it just in work? What is your experience of that?
Oh, it is all over in the domains.
Yeah.
And I tell people who are religious, they really get kind of uncomfortable when they say the spirit is not like the top of the domains. And I say, listen, if you have a spirit domain that is particularly important to you, it impacts all of the domains.
Everything.
And
yes.
Work, I love how work is not one of the domains because work is a combination of these things.
Mm-hmm.
You'll also find that life is not one of the domains because they're
Mm-hmm.
all life, right?
They are, yeah.
Accomplishing
all aspects of life. Yeah.
Right. Accomplishing something in one of these nine domains could be a combination of your life and work balance anyway. So my community includes my church family, but it also includes my business coach community and my client community and my neighborhood, right? And the guys that I go golfing with, right? Like these are all of these things, right? They're all together. They touch one another, right? They butt up against each other because your mind is active in all of your domains. Your spirit is present in all of your domains. Obviously, your body is present in all of your domains in some way, shape, or form, right? And then people try to they sometimes people I think people kind of they chuckle when I say hobbies is an entire life domain. And I said, listen, I 100% know that if I'm not doing something as a hobby, it doesn't take hours and hours and hours every week of my time to do a small hobby. But I'll tell you, if I don't have some little outlet, then I'm actually draining myself further because those hobbies that I have feed energy back to me. I'm crazy, but I love to mow my lawn, right? I absolutely love mowing my lawn. And that does take, an hour or two every week. But I'll tell you, when I'm done mowing my lawn, I'm not tired. I've just breathed fresh air. I have just seen the sunlight. I have watched the progression of something improving as I've done it. And I'll tell you, other hobbies are the same way, whether it's a round of golf or it's pickleball or it's, I've got a friend whose business is in making yarn and in knitting. And these are hobbies and businesses one and the same, right?
Yeah.
And there are some people who are really lucky that their hobby is their work. Right? I got a friend who's a golf superintendent, right? So every day he goes to a golf course and then boom, he's right there for his hobby too, right? So these things are not siloed, right? As you might say in the white collar world, right? These are not siloed domains that you have to feed separately. Now they feed one another. They really do.
And I bet they mean different things to different people. Like, for example, I would put meditation in mind, not spirit, because that's about me getting grounded and getting my mind focused, right? Whereas somebody else might put meditation or prayer in spirit, right? I might put going on a date night with my husband. That could go in family or it could go in love, you know, like, so it's interesting. Everybody will have the freedom, put their values into this as well, and like where that, and there's no judgment in that, I'm sure, because the point, I'm guessing, is to connect with it and be conscious of it so that
Right.
when you're building your life, and our business is part of that, we know that if we don't touch on these aspects, hobbies are very important. Like, you lose yourself without that. Your hobbies are kind of how you show up as you without all your other roles. For me, anyway, like, you know, like I show up in my hobbies 100% for Selena. Like, I'm not there as a mom. You know, I didn't go start a circus class because I'm a mom or a business owner. It's because I thought that would be fun for me. I don't play World of Warcraft because that's part of my mom, or, you know, that's me. It's my nerd side coming out, and I love it. I love nothing more than to cast healing spells as a druid, you know, like, perfect. I can't do that in real life. So, you know, that's not real life, but it does fill my bucket up. And I think you're right. Without those things, but equally, my love fills me up, spirit fills me up, mind fills me up. But if we're not making conscious choices to acknowledge that, plan for that, and I think what you're saying about checking in, because, you know, like anything, if our brain doesn't keep doing it, it doesn't become a habit, and it just becomes, I've gone back to drift.
Hmm.
And I can imagine there are people who come work with you who start and then they drift, and then they go, oh crap, John, I'm coming back. Can I come back? I'm drifting, I'm coming. And I think that would be really human and awesome and amazing, you know. And I know what happens is people tend to start to feel, without this, you start to feel overwhelmed, right? Because you haven't planned. And I love what you said about having three things and feeling like that's not enough. Because the reality is, those three things are your priorities, but there'll be other things going on around you that you've got to accommodate. So you're not just doing three things. It's just that you are putting in boundaries and protecting those three things that are important for you in that time period. And if you don't do that, then it's really easy to start feeling overwhelmed, like overrun, completely trapped. You don't really feel that you've got any control. I mean, I'm sure listeners are like, oh, yeah, I've been there. And I can see you nodding too. Like, this is a way to get some control, I'm guessing. So, what would you say to someone who is feeling like they don't have any control? That, you know, there's all this stuff. Like, when are they going to make time to sit down and write an epitaph and think about 9 life domains, play a game, meet with you every week? Don't be ridiculous. What would you say to that person?
It truly breaks my heart when I hear people's stories who never feel like they've had any kind of agency to make decisions
Mm,
for themselves. And it
mm,
can even sound selfish for those people because they really are loving people. They're giving. They are living for something that's bigger than themselves, but they just don't know how to conduct something like this. It scares them. And I'll tell you, investing 2 days in reflection will change your life because you need to visualize what the potential for your life is. Too often we look around us and we see maybe in our close community, in the city, the county that we live in, we see stuff going on. We see in our country or around the world. I mean, it's a bad idea to look at the news all the time. These things can put you into this mode where things are happening to you. Things are happening around you that you don't have any control over. And
mm,
what you're not doing if you're living that way is you're not saying, here are the things that I can control. And too often this is a victim mindset, and not always intentionally. There are successful people who live in a victim mindset. And if they take the moment, if they take just a day sometimes to write things down and say, these are the things that I can control. And some people don't have control over some of their life domains, and I understand that. But there are parts of your life that you can control. And if you're not going to make a plan, then you can't expect anything to improve, because this is not all about advocacy, right? But you are your best advocate. And if you're not planning to advocate for the parts of your life that you care about the most, then it's going to be really hard for you to make decisions. Every decision will feel monumentally difficult if you haven't set up a plan, if you haven't set some guidelines, some boundaries, some targets to shoot for, some vision for what possibly could happen with your life. Then it's going to be crippling, and it'll scare you into immobility. But if you can take just a day or two, and you can think quietly about what would be amazing if these things were in place, that's where we can start. If you removed all objections, if you removed all the requirements of your life that you feel are holding you back, and you just visualized what the future could look like, now we've got something to work with. But you can't do that if you don't take just a couple of days. If you
It's
don't take a
really
couple of days.
powerful. It is really, really powerful because when I went through this process, like I say, I froze. I think the question I was asked was if you had $100 billion and money was not a barrier, what would you do? And I burst into tears because I didn't actually know the answer. I just felt really overwhelmed. My first thought was guilt for having that money. I was like, no, no, hang on. That's not the point here. Back to the question. And then I froze and I literally couldn't write anything until, like you say, we look at it through these different lenses. And it was asking me questions like the box, and that did change everything for me too, because then my business had a reason to exist and I knew where my boundaries were, and I knew what business I needed to build to live the life that I wanted. For the first time in a very long time, and probably motherhood was a lot to do with that. My son's 11. There was almost a decade there where I really didn't think about myself because family, and it was like, okay, family business had just taken over. And I stopped and I thought about what I wanted. And I realized that lots of this stuff was missing or was being neglected. And that was dangerous. And you know how we talked about that tower card, hitting rock bottom. That is a great way to check in and go, whoop, before I hit that spot, if I'm feeling like this overwhelm, if I'm feeling like I got no control, this is the moment to stop and take stock before the universe goes, well, I'm going to give you control back because I'm going to take it all away and you're going to have to work it out the hard way. So I hear you. It's all kind of coming together here. I think that's amazing. I love the idea of taking 2 days. And I can imagine myself going, God, that's such a luxury. How am I going to have 2 days? That's ridiculous. But what's really interesting now is having done this work, I feel very empowered to ask for those 2 days and to say to my partner, hey, I need to do this for me. You're in charge of the family for 2 days. When can we make that happen? Whereas past life me, who hadn't done this work, wouldn't have known that that was important. And I wouldn't have learned how to put the boundaries in so that I can ask for what I need. So I think you're right. In my experience too, this kind of work is incredibly empowering, powerful, grounding, kind of really helps you understand where you're at. And, I was talking to a client a little while ago about their business, and they wanted their business to a lifestyle business to earn money, to pay the rent, pay the bills, start bringing in revenue so they could, step away from what they were currently doing. So I asked them, what's the number then? How much money do you need? And they hadn't thought about that. So they hadn't actually got a plan about where they were going. I'm like, right, well, that's the first thing, because your business is a relationship. It's one of these domains, right? It's one of these things that we're going to see the world through. If it's not giving you something in return, you're going to start to resent it because you're going to have to work hard to get this to go. And what we want, like you're saying, is that work to be on purpose, to be lighting you up. And the reality is there are times when your business is going to suck the life force out of you because you have to do stuff you don't want to do to get it going. Like maybe you really can't be bothered to do the social media this week. So you need to be able to lean into something else to fill your cup up so you've got enough juice to do that, right? And like you're saying, if you're not even aware of where those cups are and what you need in that particular season or quarter or review period, then it gets really hard really fast. And I can see exactly why you end up in the everything's crap kind of bucket. We've all been there. I've been there. I'm sure you've been
Right.
there, John. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's awesome.
It
So,
is so tough. It's so tough to look at what you might perceive as someone else being very successful, but you know what? Their success is not the same as your success. And This is not an imitation game of finding a life that someone else wants. It's about deciding to be content with the life that you want and working
Hmm.
towards it and being okay with staying in your lane. Like you said earlier, these domains have very different definitions for everyone who sits down to
Hmm.
take a look at them.
Yeah.
And the plans that go behind them are wildly different. And that's a good thing, because
That's a beautiful thing. It's
what might
gorgeous.
be
I love
super
that.
important to you may not be that important to me. But that is the
Yeah.
spice of life, to
Yes, exactly.
be able to look at all the different components that make a great community and say,
Mm.
you know what, this person is definitely leaning into this part of their life. This person is leaning into another one. And when you do take a look at this before you hit rock bottom, and you say, John, I love my life. Why would I need to do this? I'm doing great.
Mm.
Just think about what you're not accomplishing because you haven't done this, and think of it as an
Mm.
investment, right? I
Yeah,
guarantee
yeah.
you, if you attach a person to each of these life domains and then you went and asked them, hey, can I have a day so that after that day or two, we can be better at this thing together? Not a single one of them in a healthy relationship is going to say no.
No,
And if they're not,
exactly.
you drop them like a sack of potatoes, right? That this is the way you work.
Yeah.
And you got to give yourself liberty to invest in a future that helps you help other people in a greater and more authentic way.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you have your free space where people can go. I think you sit in silence, really. You just sit and do your planner together, right? It's like body doubling for those of us who are neurospicy, having someone there to go, right, this is an hour. This is accountability. This is, you can just tell me at the end of the hour or however long you've done it. Good, off you go. Perfect. I love that. I love that. I love all of these tools that we often don't that are here that you are so familiar with and that you're offering. When is your retreat? It's in October, right? Your next
Right.
retreat?
Right. And we'll do a Friday, Saturday. That way people have a little bit of extra freedom, not having to take a whole couple of days off of work.
Hmm.
We start at 9 in the morning. We go to about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We really try to make it a relaxing experience so that you can, it can be a reset, a true reset in your year, in your life. And it is just a great momentum building experience for those who are ready to do something with their lives.
And doing that in a group of others on the same journey, I'm sure will be quite inspiring because if you are like me and you freeze and you go, I don't know, hearing what other people have put starts to spark. Oh, yeah, I like that. I want to steal that. And that's part of it, isn't it? Sometimes when you very first enter this, you are a bit in the dark and you're like, that's what that is. So I can imagine being in a group is really good. And obviously, John is over in the US, but don't let that stop you because it's online. And as you may know, I often do things in the US, and it's actually quite interesting and quite fun because if you want peace and quiet and you don't have any time because you've got a busy family while they're sleeping, perfect. And then in the morning, you just go to bed. So you get extra peace and quiet. So it actually does work out quite nicely. So I would thoroughly check out John's his group that you can look into, look at his full focus work. And I'll put the link here on the bottom of the podcast and head to the show notes. You can always find our show notes at selenawoodward.com/podcast. But right now at the bottom of this video, you should see a specific link. John, I have really enjoyed sharing your work with everyone. I know that we're going to share a link so they can go put their name in the hat and find out more about your retreat running on the 4th and 5th of October 2024. In case anyone's listening to this past that date, then please still check out John's website. Again, the link will be appearing below here to see what he's running at this time because John's insight into this is really inspiring. Having worked with John over the last couple of months, he really gets this idea that we all love here on the Inner Business podcast about purpose and being driven from that purpose. And we have both, Jonathan and I, have both witnessed people getting really bogged down by that purpose because they haven't perhaps done this piece of work that allows them to take that giant elephant that feels really big and sparkly and chunk it down and make it something manageable and make it something really holistic that supports you rather than prevents you from moving forward. And I know that sounds a bit strange saying your purpose, can prevent you from moving forward. But I have met many people who are so focused on that this is their purpose that they can't see the things around them, and it kind of works the other way. So I would definitely recommend checking out Jonathan's work. Is there anything you would like to end with, Jonathan? Any kind of like big takeaway from this episode that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
I'll just say that if you have a mission vision in your life, there's nothing you can't improve with. Maybe there's stuff that you've been stuck with before, but I'll tell you what, that incremental growth is the spice of growing towards other things. And Selena, it's been a great getting to know you and the work that you're doing. You know, it's good to connect with someone else who's post-education career and getting into the business world. It's been a pleasure to get to know you, and it's been a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. So you could go and check out all of Jonathan's awesomeness at his website, which is Sheeley Executive Consulting Co. Do you want to spell that for us? Because I want them to be able to get there. I will put it below as well. How do we spell your website? Go.
It's SHEELEY, executiveconsulting.co, and we'd love to check you out somewhere too.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure you do. Trust me, this guy knows his stuff. Thank you so much for sharing with us, John. Hopefully we'll get you back. Maybe we can have a live pull of some cards from your box and we can see what people come up with. That would be fun. Hey, let us know in the comments below if you want me and John to come back. We could do a live stream. We could pull some cards. Like, you can do it to me. I don't mind. Do you think that's a good idea? Comment below if you want us to do that. We're up for it. Thank you so much, everybody. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or any other platform, you've ticked the box so that you get every episode straight to your phone every week. We wouldn't want you to miss anything. And make sure you head to selenawoodward.com/podcast to hit subscribe and get all the latest news. That's it for this week on the Inner Business Podcast. Take care.